And here's your host, Tyler Garrett.
Southern Pride football at its finest.
Are you kidding me?
Unbelievable. No flag. No flag. What a hit. Ball's free. On the ground. South Carolina deserves to have it, and they do.
Welcome into the Carolina CrowLine. The Gamecocks fall to 3-2 on the season, 1-2 in conference play as they drop the game late in the fourth quarter to Texas A&M, 24-17. We'll reflect back on that game, talk about what went wrong there, take a look at the Gamecocks' current situation in the SEC, talk about where we are as a program, and is there a coordinator on the hot seat for the Gamecocks? We'll turn our attention towards Arkansas as well, take a ride around the SEC, and hear from Coach Will Muschamp and your thoughts and questions, all that right here on the Carolina CrowLine. We're just getting warmed up. Stay with us.
Follow the show on Twitter at Carolina CrowLine. Email the show at gcsportstalk@gmail.com.
Blue Star medicated ointment works fast to relieve the pain and itch of almost any skin irritation.
It's amazing. It's like as soon as you put it on, you can feel it working.
We've had Blue Star in the family for years. It works on everything.
I love the cooling sensation on my athlete's foot.
What a relief for my eczema.
Nothing worked on my dry, cracked skin until I tried Blue Star.
Blue Star is great for scalp itch.
Look for the white box with the Blue Star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast, or your money back.
Check out the Groupon app where you can save up to infinity, theoretically speaking. Actually, you can save up to $100 a week on what you do every day. Suppose you saved $10 on tacos and took that $10 and used it to get more great restaurant deals on Groupon, like Italian or Chinese. Pretty soon, you could save a ton. Brunch? Check Groupon. Dinner plans? Check Groupon. Hungry? Use the top-rated Groupon app to save up to $100 a week on what you do every day. Download the app and save. Groupon.
Why have over 3 million guys switched to Harry's razors? Because at Harry's, we give you less. We make just one razor with 5 German-engineered blades. Ding! All you need for a smooth and comfortable shave. And we got rid of upcharges. By owning the factory and cutting out the middleman, we're able to sell our high-quality blades for ridiculous prices every day. Ka-ching! Now we're dropping the ridiculous sound effects guy.
Wait, why?
Not everyone can give you high quality and an amazing price.
Harry's. One perfect razor. None of the extra noise.
As a special offer for radio listeners, get an $18 shave set with an added bonus for free when you visit harrys.com and use code 5252 at sign-up. Just cover a few bucks for shipping. That's harrys.com, code 5252 to redeem your shave set. Again, it's harrys.com, code 5252.
Please note, no sound effects guys were harmed in the making of this radio recording.
And what's up, Gamecock Nation? We're just getting things started off here. You're listening to the Carolina CrowLine. I'm the host of the show, Tyler Garrett. We are coming to you from Columbia, South Carolina, home of the South Carolina Gamecocks. And for all of you fans out there, I'm sure the frustration is building as South Carolina goes to 3-2 on the season, 1-2 in conference play, dropping a game out there in College Station against Texas A&M, 24-17, a game that South Carolina was surprisingly in control of for 3 quarters of the football game, but that's not how many quarters are played in a football game. They wind up relinquishing that lead to the Aggies there at the home of the 12th man and walk out with a 7-point loss. And if you listen to last week's program, when I give my score predictions at the end of the show, I didn't think South Carolina was going to walk into College Station and get that win. I thought that Texas A&M was too dynamic of an offense, and they had too many playmakers with Kellen Mond, especially is that added danger in an offense where you have to watch out for that running quarterback. And South Carolina, I said it last week, South Carolina hasn't played well against a running quarterback in about 3 years. And the first half, you go into halftime, you're up 17-7, and you're feeling pretty good about things. 10-7, and you're feeling pretty good about things. And surprisingly, the defense held South Carolina's offense in check for the most part. And while I was watching that football game, I was amazed that Texas A&M wasn't running Kellen Mond, especially coming off that 200-yard throwing, 200-yard running performance the week before. And we certainly got a taste of that in the second half. Finally, he put his legs to some good use and really started to throw the Gamecock defense off balance, and the Gamecocks just couldn't come up with an answer. And as I reviewed that football game, especially defensively, because trust me, I'll get to the offense in a minute, but defensively, it just didn't look like. I think that was an example of the injury to Bryson Allen Williams really playing a role in trying to contain a running quarterback defensively, especially when you mix in the zone read plays with the running backs. It was just too much for South Carolina to handle defensively. You saw Sherrod Green, you saw Brad Johnson get some good playing time this past Saturday, but you also saw linebackers out of position in critical downs in the second half. And a lot of people praise the talent of Brad Johnson and Sherrod Green and think they're going to be great linebackers, and I'm completely there. I think these guys are playmakers, and they're going to grow in the system and become very valuable members of the defense for the Gamecocks. But when you have inexperienced linebackers, especially against a running quarterback, every little mistake is going to be magnified. And if you're out of position, if you take the wrong gap, and you guess wrong, you're going to get burnt, and that's exactly what happened in the second half. Overall, though, the offense was not doing anyone any favors, and based on what I've been able to hear and the Gamecock fans I've talked to, a lot of people really want to put this loss on the offensive play calling. And here's where people either fall in one of two categories based upon the people I've talked to. Number one, offensively, you say, well, what is the offense supposed to do? You lost a third offensive lineman early in the game when I believe it was Malik Young goes out. So you've got three guys in the offensive line in Hutcherson. You've got DJ Park now inserted into the football game. There's no depth. There's no quality depth on this offensive line. You could tell in the second half, finally Texas A&M got the message, and when they got in, and when the Gamecocks got into predictable passing situations, they just teed off on Bentley. It was what kind of plays can you call when the offensive line can't run block and can't pass block? And then there's the section of the fan base who says, well, what is the deal with the play calling and Kurt Roper? Kurt Roper. He has no feel for the game. He can't call the right plays in the right situations. What is he doing just allowing Jake Bentley to stand back there and get beat up over and over and over in the second half? I believe A&M tallied 6 sacks in the second half, the majority of those coming in the fourth quarter when the game was in the balance after Texas A&M sprang to that lead. So I guess my question is, what section of the fan base do you find yourself in? Are you a Kurt Roper sympathizer and you find yourself putting the onus of that offensive performance this past Saturday on the offensive line? Or are you a Kurt Roper hater? Are you someone who thinks that no matter what is going on with the personnel, it's the offensive coordinator's job to, number one, see what the defense is trying to take away, number two, know the limitations of your offensive personnel and adjust your plays accordingly, and number three, when things start to hit the fan and go badly, what can you do to mitigate the mistakes and the errors so that you can put your team in position to win the football game? I've talked to both types. And to me, I think it's kind of somewhere in the middle. I think it's a little bit of both. They're not mutually exclusive. I think if you're Kurt Roper, when you game plan, and I 100% believe this is how it happened. I don't think they're that inexperienced and naive to not do it this way. But when you know you're going to be missing 2 offensive linemen, and you know the limitations of the personnel that you're going to be dealing with, you have to say, hey, in our game coming up, we cannot put these guys in bad situations. We cannot set them up to fail. So what kinds of things do we need to do a little bit differently to either kind of cover up these weaknesses or try to avoid putting these guys in positions where they're going to cost our offense moving the ball down the field? They're going to cost us points. And in the first half, everything seemed to be going just fine. Jake Bentley was pressured. By the way, Texas A&M leads the SEC in sacks in the conference, per game and total sacks. He was able to scramble around, make some things happen. The touchdown pass to Shi Smith was a great example of that. You were able to run the ball here and there in the first half and keep the momentum moving. You missed another kick, but you bounced back. You were able to hit another one. You go into halftime. You give up points right before the half, but overall, you have to feel like you're in command of the football game. You come out in the second half, you put another touchdown on the board, and I think it was obvious, it was clear to me that all of a sudden, it looked like with a quarter and a half of football left, South Carolina panicked. They were happy to just try and eat the clock, run some plays, get out, punt the ball. They felt good about their defense, but it looked like they were playing not to lose, I think, from midway through the third quarter on. And that comes straight from the play caller. That comes straight from the play caller. And it's just another one of those things that's not giving Will Muschamp, it's not doing him any favors from a fan base who already knows he's coming from a place where he lost his job because he couldn't put points on the board. You look at South Carolina's last 3 football games, 17 points, 17 points, 17 points, 13 points. That's not going to get it done for Gamecock fans. That's not going to get it done in the SEC, and that's not going to keep Will Muschamp with a job as a head coach. Plenty more to talk about. We're going to get into the other side of the argument right after this break. Stay with us. You're listening to the CrowLine.
Make a big noise playing in the street, gonna be a big man someday. You got mud on your face, you big disgrace, kicking your can all over the place, singing, we will rock you.
What's up, Gamecock fans? We're back here on the Carolina CrowLine. Things are getting serious in the chat room right now. We got a lot of thoughts being thrown around after South Carolina's come-from-behind loss to Texas A&M out there in College Station, dropping them to 1-2 in conference play. Jim in the chat room says, we need to execute the plays. That's true. You got to execute the plays that are called. There are plenty of times, and you're going to hear Coach Muschamp talk about it a little bit later in the program, where he's asked the question about what happened in the offense with Jake Bentley taking all those sacks in the second half. And he said, look, 2 of those were on halfbacks who completely missed their blitz pickups and just let a free rusher pass right beside them, boom, 2 sacks. He said there were 2 or 3 of those plays where he thought Jake Bentley just stood there and held on to the ball. Now, if I remember correctly, and I did go back and watch this game more than once, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot of time for Jake Bentley to hold the ball too long. It was more like you had about 2 seconds before you were getting pinned to the turf by a Texas A&M defender. Jamie in the chat room says, we played too conservative the last quarter. Should have kept the gas pedal on and scored as much as possible. And that kind of goes back to scoring the last three games. 13 points, 17 points, 17 points again. If you cannot count on special teams, you have got to try and score as many times as you can. Not to mention the fact that you've heard Coach Muschamp talk about the lack of quality depth on the defense, and you saw it manifest itself in this game. Kellen Mond, Ford, the running back, ran wild in the second half, and Muschamp will talk about that. Talked about that in his press conference as well, being worn down as a defense, being out there for too many plays. You have to sustain drives on an offense. Even if you're not putting points on the board, it's just to give your defensive side, your defensive personnel, the rest that they need to be able to make it through 4 full quarters. Jamie goes on to say we need some quick running back screen passes. They did try a few screen passes. I think they tried 1, maybe 2. I know they tried 1 in the first half to Tyson Williams, which was a bad pass, incomplete bad pass from Bentley. I think they tried 1 more when everything was hitting the fan in the second half. But by then, it just wasn't going to be enough. And here's the other side of the argument. Those of you that want to put everything on Kurt Roper, I can understand that. Because here's why. It goes back to knowing the situations. It's called situational awareness. If you're in a situation where the momentum has shifted, the crowd is lathered up, you suddenly find yourself down by 7 points with about 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, after you haven't been able to move the ball since 7 minutes to go in the third, those defensive linemen are thinking one thing: get to the quarterback. You have got to give them some other things to think about. In my opinion, you've got to give them some other things to think about. You have got to run a jet sweep with Shi Smith. Make their eyes move. Give them something extra to think about. You have got to move Bentley out of the pocket and get him away from the pass rushers. Give these guys something else to think about. Draw plays. Screens. Wide receiver screens. We've run tight end screens. We've run halfback screens. We've run every screen. We've run a jet sweep to the tight end. Remember that against the Missouri game? There are things in the playbook that are designed to get the defenders flowing in one direction and get them moving to buy time and to hit other opportunities in other areas of the field. I didn't see any of that stuff in the fourth quarter. So to me, I can understand that argument. You got to have a feel and a flow for the game. If you know that you're going in with a depleted offensive line, you cannot expect them to just sit there and pass block long enough for your receivers to run 15, 20-yard routes down the field and not expect there to be trouble when you're facing the number 1 sack defense in the SEC. Some of that stuff to me it just borderlines on common sense, and I wasn't seeing that at the end of the ball game. So I can see both segments of the fan base. Well, what did you want them to do? The offensive line wasn't blocking anybody anyway. I understand that. Well, what did you want Jake Bentley to do? Kurt Roper just kept calling 20-yard pass routes, and there weren't any slants. There weren't any passes out to the flat. There weren't any wide receiver screen looks to get the ball out quickly. And the other part that gets under my skin about it when I was watching the football game is, if you think back, Gamecock Nation, to the very first football game of the season, people were calling NC State's defensive line probably one of the best, if not the best defensive line South Carolina was going to face all season long. And what did you watch as the game plan during the first game of the season? What did you see? You saw offensive play calling designed to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands very quickly, mixing that in with the run. If you know Texas A&M's defensive line is just pinning their ears back and are just quarterback headhunting, where's that kind of stuff that we saw? We know it's there. We've seen it before. So those are the two things that I think Gamecock Nation is pretty frustrated about. But to be honest, I didn't think the Gamecocks were gonna pull this one out to begin with. And I don't think, and you can chime in, hit us up on Twitter. It's at Carolina CrowLine. Email the show, Tyler@crmsports.com. Jump into the Facebook Live chat room. You can even, if you're not catching Facebook Live as it's happening, you can still go to our Facebook page and drop in your thoughts and comments as you listen. Is it so much that South Carolina lost the football game, or is it how they're losing the football games? Is it how they won against Louisiana Tech? Is it how they lost against Texas A&M? I don't think there were a majority of Gamecock fans that felt like that we were going to get a win against Texas A&M this past Saturday. But I think a lot more Gamecock fans are chapped about the way South Carolina walked out of there with their loss. I think right now, if you said 3-2 after the first 5 games of the season, I would say 80 to 85% of Gamecock fans would probably sign up for that. It's when you watch the games and you see how the losses are achieved. There is no business South Carolina, in my opinion, should have lost to Kentucky 23-13 at home in your home opener. Tell me what is special about Kentucky that makes them a team that we should be losing to. And when I say we, I mean South Carolina. Again, they struggled with a win, almost losing at the end of the game 24-20 at home against Eastern Michigan this past Saturday. So these are a lot of the issues that I think are starting to bubble up for Gamecock Nation. So I want to hear from you guys. I want you guys to tell me, is it so much that you expected better than 3-2, or is the issue really that it's the kind of 3-2 South Carolina is? Because if you watched Tennessee last Saturday and you watched Arkansas so far this season and you've watched Vanderbilt, you've got to feel pretty optimistic, I think, over the next 3 football games. Home Arkansas, on the road to Knoxville, bye week, and then you welcome the Vanderbilt Commodores on October 28th. You let me know. 3-2 is where South Carolina sits right now, 1-2 in the SEC. I think, and if you're asking me, I feel like South Carolina is probably right where I expected them to be. I told a lot of people before the season started, I said, look, they would say, hey, what do you think the Gamecocks are going to do this year? I said, they may be better, but have the same record because the schedule is just that much tougher. They can be a better football team, a more improved football team, but it may not necessarily show up in their overall record by the end of the season. I don't think there's any doubt right now that South Carolina is a better football team than they were last year. But there are some very frustrating issues that I think are really starting to wear on Gamecock Nation. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to head out to another break. We're going to get to more of your comments in the chat room, and we're going to hear a little bit from Coach Will Muschamp as he previews Arkansas as South Carolina comes back home to Williams-Brice Stadium. Stay with us. You're listening to the Carolina CrowLine.
Only a champ swing the hardest in the 12th round. I love the 4th quarter. I love the 9th inning. I love game 7. Bring on the competition. Cause in my heart, can't nobody do it better. Can't slow me down. Won't stop me, never.
I have to get to sleep.
Tom had a stressful day, and now he can't shut down at bedtime.
Need sleep.
To fall asleep fast, millions of people turn to Unisom sleep gels. They're non-habit forming and quickly help you sleep soundly so you wake recharged. Tom? Unisom sleep gels. A stressful day deserves a restful night. Use as directed. Active ingredient diphenhydramine hydrochloride.
Geico presents a voicemail from your friend, Lightning.
Hey, bud, Joe Pal Lightning. I was just hanging out in the old Cloudaroo here. Thought I'd give you a call. I hope you're still not sore about that time I deep-fried your big screen TV with that bolt. Yeah, I've been meaning to pay you back for that one, for sure. A little short on cash at the moment, but any day now. Yep. Well, anywho, talk later.
Lightning won't pay for the damage it causes. Luckily, the Geico Insurance Agency makes getting coverage a snap. Visit geico.com to see how affordable renter's insurance can be.
Allergy sufferers? The name's Nigel. I'm a well-educated owl, therefore well-versed in the difference between what's wise and unwise. Talking like a pirate on a job interview. Unwise. Using Zysol for 24-hour relief of your allergy symptoms? Quite wise. In a clinical study, 90% of allergy sufferers who use Zysol felt powerful 24-hour relief after just 1 day. So for continuous allergy relief, don't be unwise. Be wise all. Take Zysol. Use as directed.
Blue Star medicated ointment gets 5-star reviews from our loyal users for fast relief of the pain and itch of almost any skin irritation.
Blue Star soothes insect bites and fungal infections.
It really works on the summer rashes I get every year.
I had psoriasis on my elbows. Blue Star worked wonders.
Amazing stuff. Smear a bit on and the itch is gone.
Look for the white box with the blue star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast, or your money back.
And we're back here on the Carolina CrowLine. Email the show, Tyler at crmsports.com. Hit us up on Twitter at Carolina CrowLine. Like us on Facebook as well. You can get our show as a podcast on iTunes. Just search for Carolina CrowLine, hit subscribe, and it'll automatically notify you when a new CrowLine is available. Of course, you can always go to carolina.libsyn.com. That is carolina.libsyn, Libsyn.com. Stream the Carolina CrowLine straight from the internet on your tablet, PC, mobile device. No downloading necessary. So you don't have to worry about taking up all that memory for all those selfies. All right, so we've tried to work through the issues a little bit. A lot of fair, valid criticisms on the part of Gamecock Nation. We got a lot of thoughts going on in the chat room right now. Jamie wants to know why we continue to run the ball up the middle time after time when it never works. Well, two things. Number one, you have to show the run. And I talked about this with another person the other day. You have to show that you're going to try to run the ball. It kind of goes back to the other situation where you got to give the defensive lineman other things to think about. That's why in predictable passing downs, you see so many pass rushing sacks and so many blitzes because it's an obvious passing situation. So you've got to continue to run the ball. But number two, I completely agree with Jamie on the other point. It doesn't work. Running A.J. Turner in between tackle is not going to work. Now, running A.J. Turner off tackle, running A.J. Turner on a toss play or a sweep or anything like that, that's where A.J. Turner, you have to get him into space and make him use his speed. He's not a tackle breaking running back. He is a tackle missing running back. He will run past you or run around you or juke around you. He's not going to run through you. So running A.J. Turner straight into the line of scrimmage is not going to be something that's going to wind up in a positive play 9 times out of 10. The other issue is Rico Dowdle, I think, is still hurt. Yes, he's listed as healthy. Yes, he played in the football game. I don't think he's 100%. So that leaves Tyson Williams. And he did not have a bad game against Texas A&M. Just to hit you up, since we're moving towards the stats, Tyson Williams, 14 carries for 73 yards. Not a bad night. Most of that carry came on a 34-yard run. But you've got A.J. Turner, 1 carry for 0 yards. Rico Dowdle, 2 carries for -4. Jake Bentley gets sacked for negative 46 yards, for a loss of 46 total yards. That's not going to work. That's just not going to work. By the way, South Carolina is in the bottom of the conference in rushing. Only propped up out of the basement by 2 other squads, Vanderbilt, surprisingly, and Ole Miss. Other than that, South Carolina is the worst rushing team in the SEC currently through the season so far. Jake Bentley, 17 of 30, 256 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not a bad night. But when you take 7 sacks in the football game and you have 12 tackles for loss, not a recipe. Something you have to do something else to get that defense off balance. And that's kind of what we alluded to a little bit earlier in the program. But right now we're asking Gamecock Nation, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter, get into the Facebook chat room. Is it the 3-2 that bothers you, or is it the way South Carolina is 3-2 that's the problem? I think for a lot of us, I think there's a certain segment of the fan base out there who feels like South Carolina should be 5-0. When you leave, I think, 17 points on the field in missed field goals and 4th and goals that you don't convert against Kentucky, and you lose your home opener by 10, I think that gets under people's skin, especially when South Carolina was favored in that football game. And you had that football game circled. I don't think there were a lot of people that felt like South Carolina was going to beat Texas A&M, but you go in there up 10-7 at half. At one point, you're up 17-7, and then A&M rattles off 17 straight points to come back and win the football game, and you can't do anything in the fourth quarter. So I agree with Jamie in the chat room. I think that's probably where most South Carolina fans are going to fall. I think it's just the way that these games, especially these losses. However, you look at the last second come from behind win against Louisiana Tech, that you can lump that in there too. I think it's those are the things that are bothering people in Gamecock Nation right now. Let's toss it out to Coach Will Muschamp and let you hear his thoughts. We preview Arkansas coming up at 4 p.m. in Williams-Brice Stadium on the SEC Network. Here's Coach.
We're excited to get back to Williams-Brice Stadium here on Saturday.
Yeah, I bet you're excited.
A very good Arkansas football team. They're a little unique at this day and age as opposed to maybe 10, 12 years ago where they were very normal. Offensively, Dan Enos does an outstanding job. Very similar thoughts from when Brett was at Wisconsin to now at Arkansas, and some of the things they do offensively, more traditional two-back, big people on the field, play action. We got to have great eye control defensively, and as far as what we're watching and those sort of things. But Austin Allen's an outstanding thrower, really a talented arm. Guys really played well in our league. They've got some really talented runners. Obviously, David's there now, and a guy that we've thought a lot of when he was here, and certainly wanted a fresh start, and I'm glad he's got that opportunity. But Chase Hayden's a freshman, who's really played well for him. Has been some Wildcat for them and done some nice things, and Whaley's a really good back as well. Multiple tight ends they use. They're big, physical outside at the receiver position, so we've got to be able to match up on those guys. And, again, eye control in the secondary and the linebacker is going to be critical for us to be able to cover down and being in the right spots. Defensively, Paul Rhodes does a really good job. They're primarily a three-down team. You see some of the active guys they've got inside. The two linebackers really jump out at me as far as their tackling in space and playing in space. So we got a work cut out for us, but we're looking forward to getting back on the field. I thought we had a very good day this morning. The guys are very spirited and getting back to practice and restarting and moving forward to playing Arkansas here at home. Injury-wise, Zach Bailey and Corey Helms and Malik Young are all day-to-day. To me, I think Zach's got the best opportunity to play, and I'll probably know more Wednesday or Thursday on him. But he's probably further out and helping us than the other two guys are at this time, and Terry Goucher is day-to-day as well. And I'll open up for any questions.
Will, with the running game, are there, wholesale changes coming to formation schemes or just little tweaks here and there that you guys have worked on?
Well, I think when you're struggling, you go back and you say, what are we doing well? And I think that you look in the passing game right now, the RPOs have been really good for us. We've created a lot of explosive plays. I think you look at the quick game has been really good for us. You look at last Saturday night, Shy Smith in the quick game, big explosive play. Brian Edwards in a quick game, an explosive play on 2nd and 7. You look at the back shoulder throw on Brian, which is a quick game. They went to more man coverage to deny the ball in a lot of quick game situations, which obviously sometimes converts your routes further down the field. And, again, I thought that that's been very productive. The play-action pass has been very productive. And really our drop-back passing game has been very good until the other night when we struggled to protect. And, really Jake in a couple situations has got to get rid of the football. The running back position misses 2 protections. And then we got beat up front a couple times. that, to me, maybe it's backwards of how I look at it, but let's start there, and then let's build from that. And what do we need to do to continue to improve? Well, obviously, we're not going to have an open forum about what we need to do Saturday. Are there some tweaks? I don't know that you make wholesale changes in a week, but there are some things, bright spots that we have, been able to accomplish this year. The first play of the second half and a 34-yard power play inside that was blocked extremely well. And there were some runs in some other situations. If you look at 17 carries for 77 yards and 4.5 yards a carry the other night, you take away the sack yardage, which has nothing to do with your rushing offense. There are some positive things. Is it where we want to be? No. It isn't good enough, and it's not productive enough. And you have to stay balanced in this league. You can't become one-dimensional, i.e., after the second series of the second half, it became a throwing game, and it was a launching pad for the quarterback. So,
that's a bad thing. Launching pad means
those didn't
tackling
manifest
dummy.
Itself. The running game was non-existent, and they're teeing off on the quarterback. So when you get in those situations, it's extremely difficult. So we've got to find some sort of balance within what we do as far as getting the ball in the perimeter more and continuing to have ways to run the football.
Hey, Coach. What are some of the biggest issues in the red zone offense right now, and how do you address those moving forward into this weekend?
Well, I think that, first of all, missing 7 field goals is not good. Now, 2 of those are from 50, 3 of those from plus 40. And so those are some issues. You take away 21 points, you probably should have scored. We've got a turnover on downs and inside the 1-yard line and a turnover inside the 10-yard line last Saturday night. That's a bunch of points off the board that you had opportunities to get scores. Obviously, we need to score touchdowns down there, and that's some things that we've looked at schematically of what we're doing and what we need to improve, and how do we attack the Arkansas defense and some of the things that they do in the red zone, and how can we take advantage of those guys in the run game and the pass game.
All right, so there's a little bit from Coach Will Muschamp right there, and Ren in the chat room brings up an interesting point about the kicker, and you heard him talk about it a little bit there, and he continued to talk about it later in the press conference. Look, if your guy isn't going to make it from beyond 35 yards, don't kick it from beyond 35 yards. If you get into a 4th and manageable situation, it might be time to seriously consider, are we just going to be an offense that starts to go for it on 4th down unless we're in a distance where the kicker feels comfortable, where the coach feels comfortable that the kicker is going to make it. Because at this point, you can't just keep shanking 37-yard, 40-yard field goals and just hope it's going to get better. I think it's like beating your head up against the wall and expecting it not to hurt. This is the definition of insanity. So I would look for the offensive philosophy to shift a little bit when you're in the upper red zone or the high plus area, as Will Muschamp likes to call it. You're either going to start punting or you're going to start going for it on 4th down if you think you have a shot, because if you miss the field goal, it's just as good as a turnover anyway, because the opposing offense is going to get the ball right where the line of scrimmage was anyway. So at that point, you might as well just go for it. And I don't think after watching, by the way, South Carolina is the 2nd worst field goal kicking team in the SEC. You want to know who the worst field goal kicking team is in the SEC? That would be Arkansas. But they've only attempted 1 field goal all year and they've missed it. South Carolina's attempted 10 field goals this year and they've made 2. So there's that. But again, that's a brilliant question and something that they're seriously going to have to take a look at. And you heard Will Muschamp give a long, drawn-out answer about how they need to take a look at what they're doing in the running game and start to evolve their offensive game plan. All of that sounds great. That sounds wonderful. But if Gamecock Nation doesn't actually start to see those changes take place, start to see that evolution occur, and those different things attempted, it's just going to be a bunch of song and dance with no results. We're going to head out to a break. Stay with us. This is the CrowLine. welcome back into the show. You're listening to the Carolina CrowLine. Coming to you from the CRM Sports Studios in Columbia, South Carolina. Go ahead and make the Carolina CrowLine a part of your week. Go to iTunes, download the Carolina CrowLine as a podcast. You can download the Gamecock Sports Radio app, and you'll find the Carolina CrowLine right there, as well as several other Gamecock-related sports podcasts that come out at various times throughout the week, just to keep your Gamecock appetite at bay. You can also stream the program at Let me try again. You can stream the program carolina.libsyn.com, carolina.libsyn.com, libsyn.com. Like us on Facebook as well. You can continue to comment in the chat room even after the Facebook Live has ended. You can click on it and listen and watch, and then add to the conversation throughout the week, so we can kind of have living dialogue throughout the week. You can even jump in there during the games, right after the games, whatever or whenever you've got time to do it, so we can keep the momentum going all week long. By the way, just to hit up some numbers for the rest of you stat geeks, South Carolina gave up 396 yards to Texas A&M. Also, Texas A&M controlled the ball for the majority of the second half. And Texas A&M had 20 first downs to South Carolina's 14 first downs. Also, just some personal stats. We mentioned South Carolina giving up 6 sacks and 12 tackles for loss. Most of those sacks coming in the final drives of the fourth quarter when South Carolina was trying to get back into the program. Kellen Mond, the true freshman quarterback who was starting, I believe this was only his third game as a starting quarterback, 19 of 27, 159 yards, no touchdowns, also no picks, but rushed the ball 16 times for 95 yards. Keith Ford ran the ball 12 times for 70 yards, the senior, and 2 touchdowns. Travion Williams, 16 carries, 56 yards, and a touchdown as well. So embarrassing statistics when it comes to rushing defense. When you want to take a look at South Carolina, you heard them ask the question in the interview about the red zone offense and what South Carolina needs to do to improve the red zone offense. And you heard Will Muschamp go on this long answer about what needs to improve, and he talked about the missed special teams. He talked about the missed 4th and goals. He talked about the interceptions down in the red zone. And when you total that all up, South Carolina is 13th in the SEC in scoring offense, only averaging right now 22.6 points a game, and a lot of that average has been boosted by scoring 35 against NC State and 31 against Missouri. The other thing I'm going to say about this is I think every Gamecock fan out there, and I think any just fan of college football, realizes if Will Muschamp doesn't succeed here at South Carolina, this is his last shot at being a head football coach after what happened at Florida. We know why Will Muschamp was fired at Florida. Will Muschamp was fired a few days after Dylan Thompson ran in an option play around the corner in overtime to beat the Gators. Will Muschamp was out of there 2 days later. He was out because he couldn't score the football. It wasn't because of his defense. He was out because he could not score the football. And it's starting. It's peeking its head out for the very first time, this seed of here we are in year 2 of Will Muschamp at USC, and we're talking about how the offense can't move the football. And it might start to get pretty dangerous if this continues to be a theme this year, and even more so if it starts next year. The narrative of Will Muschamp can't score the football as a head coach is going to follow him around, and it's just going to start getting louder and louder and louder. I don't think Will Muschamp is going to let Kurt Roper throw away his last chance at being a head coach. I don't think it's going to be so extreme as to have a situation where Kurt Roper is dismissed in the middle of the season. I don't think that's the answer. That's not going to happen. But I also don't think Will Muschamp is just going to sit there and say, well,
you're fired.
That's not going to happen. But he's not going to listen to Ray Tanner tell him he's fired either. If he thinks there needs to be a change in the offense, I think he's going to make the change because I think he knows in the back of his head this is his last chance as a head coach. And I think everybody else could probably agree with that too. So it remains to be seen how this thing is going to start to shake out. According to Vegas, right now, South Carolina is actually an underdog this Saturday in Williams-Brice Stadium. 1.5 underdog currently. But if you look at some of the other metrics online, the majority of them has South Carolina winning the football game. Let's take a look real quick around the SEC in this upcoming week of games. LSU, of course, LSU in Florida is your CBS National Game of the Week, 3:30 on CBS. Georgia is going on the road to Nashville to take on Vandy. Kentucky is welcoming Missouri. Tennessee has a bye week right at the perfect time. I'm sure Butch Jones is hiding in the training facility and probably won't be peeking his head outside of that building anytime soon as they welcome South Carolina up in Knoxville 2 weeks from now. You better believe he's going to be doing everything he can to try and beat South Carolina. Alabama goes on the road to Texas A&M. Auburn hosts Ole Miss. And then Mississippi State is off as well. So we are neck deep in SEC games right now. LSU and Florida is going to be an interesting football game. Both of those programs are having their fair share of issues right now, so that's going to be an interesting game to watch. And when it comes to South Carolina and Arkansas, you heard Will Muschamp talk about it right there in his weekly press conference. This is a different football team than South Carolina really has had to deal with. Arkansas is much closer to a Georgia football team than an Florida football team or an Auburn football team or a Missouri football team. This is going to be much more of a two tight end, two running back, power football running, play action passing type of football team. They're not really a super hurry up type of offense. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. You heard Muschamp talk about how they're going to try and have three linebackers on the field in their defensive personnel packages more so this game than really at any time of the season. So that's going to get more youth and more experience on the football field. And again, this is going to be more of a situation where it's going to be, can you win your one-on-one matchups? Can those linebackers stay in the gaps, funnel these running plays to the middle, and keep these offensive linemen from getting to the second level and blocking these linebackers right out of the play? That is going to be the issue for South Carolina. And again, if there's a saving grace for South Carolina, it's that defensively, Arkansas has had some problems rushing the passer. They are in the bottom of the conference in sacks. They are in the bottom of the conference in tackles for loss. So that's going to be an opportunity for South Carolina to keep Jake Bentley on his feet and cover up some of these inefficiencies that the South Carolina offensive line is having at this point in the season. Muschamp said that he thought we would get Zach Bailey back for this game. I don't think Zach Bailey is going to be back. I don't think Corey Helms or Malik Young are going to play in this game. That's just my speculation. So this is an opportunity where you match up pretty well against Arkansas defensively with their defensive front seven, and you really have a chance to do some damage and fix the issues South Carolina is having on offense. We'll head out to our last break. Stay with us.
Why have over 3 million guys switched to Harry's razors? Because at Harry's, we give you less. We make just one razor with 5 German-engineered blades. Ding! All you need for a smooth and comfortable shave. And we got rid of upcharges. By owning the factory and cutting out the middleman, we're able to sell our high-quality blades for ridiculous prices every day. Now we're dropping the ridiculous sound effects guy.
Wait, why?
Not everyone can give you high quality and an amazing price.
Harry's. One perfect razor. None of the extra noise.
As a special offer for radio listeners, get an $18 shave set with an added bonus for free when you visit harrys.com and use code 5252 at sign-up. Just cover a few bucks for shipping. That's harrys.com, code 5252 to redeem your shave set. Again, it's harrys.com, code 5252.
Please note, no sound effects guys were harmed in the making of this radio recording.
Check out the Groupon app where you can save up to infinity. theoretically speaking. Actually, you can save up to $100 a week on what you do every day. Suppose you save $10 on tacos and took that $10 and used it to get more great restaurant deals on Groupon, like Italian or Chinese. Pretty soon, you could save a ton. Brunch? Check Groupon. Dinner plans? Check Groupon. Hungry? Use the top-rated Groupon app to save up to $100 a week on what you do every day. Download the app and save. Groupon.
Geico presents a voicemail from your friend, Windstorm.
Oh, hey, how's it going? It's me, Windstorm. Anywho, just wanted to check up, see if you had a good weekend. Oh, and by the way, I accidentally smashed all of your patio furniture into your house and I can't pay for the damage. But mostly, I just wanted to check up, say hello, and hope you had a great weekend. Later, Gator.
Windstorms never pay for wind damage. Luckily, one call to the Geico Insurance Agency makes it easy to switch and save on homeowners insurance.
All right, welcome back into the show. We're on our final segment of the program here on the Carolina CrowLine. We're trying to look ahead. That Texas A&M game is behind us. Again, if you got any final thoughts, comments, or questions, tweet to us at Carolina CrowLine. Email the show, Tyler@crmsports.com. Of course, you can always hit us up. And join in the fun on Facebook as well. Let's turn our attention towards Arkansas. I mentioned it prior to the break, but let me hit you with a couple of stats. Arkansas is averaging about 400 yards a game. And they're very balanced, 200 yards, 203 yards passing, 205 yards rushing per game. They rotate three backs out, Chase Hayden, the true freshman, David Williams, the former Gamecock, who's a graduate transfer, and their other running back, Devya Whaley. And all of these guys get about the same amount of carries. They're very balanced on offense. Right around, Devya Whaley is your leading rusher. I think he's got 245 yards on the season, but Chase Hayden is right behind him at 239 yards, and then David Johnson is is over the 200-yard mark as well for yards on the season. So again, they rotate these guys out. They keep them fresh. That is one thing I think that is a concern for South Carolina when you talk about the defensive depth for the Gamecocks and the getting worn down over the course of the game. They're going to keep pounding these big backs at you throughout the football game. And again, I mentioned it on the front side of that last break, you're going to need to stay disciplined. You're going to need to keep the offensive linemen from getting to that second level and tight ends from getting to that second level and blocking the linebackers straight out of the play. And that's a concern when you don't have big linebackers. Sky Moore is not a big linebacker. TJ Brunson, at this point in his career, is not a particularly big linebacker. The freshmen on the squad aren't big linebackers. They haven't gotten into the program yet. Bryce Allen Williams was your biggest backer. He's out for the season. So that's a little bit of a concern for me. But when I look at Arkansas and I see opportunities for success, it's rushing the passer and tackles for loss. They've had a lot of problems getting penetration into the offensive backfield with their front seven. Now, that might change on Saturday because we know that South Carolina's offensive line has been struggling. However, you can look at it the other way. That's an opportunity for South Carolina to improve on the offensive line, to mask those issues a little bit and give Jake Bentley a little bit more of an opportunity to be successful, especially down the field. Also, that gives South Carolina, Arkansas is right in the middle of the pack in the SEC in rushing defense. So, if Will Muschamp plans to do what he said he plans to do this week in dialing down what they do well and branching out from there. There's not a lot they do well in the first place, but focusing on what they do well, running those plays to perfection, ironing out the details, and being successful. I see an opportunity for that to happen for South Carolina. Austin Allen, their quarterback, is I believe a fifth-year senior. He's a guy who's a veteran. He's experienced. He's not going to be easily rattled by the home crowd at Williams-Brice Stadium. But he's a guy that is prone to making mistakes if you get him in some situations that he doesn't want to be in. He's a guy that will turn the ball over. I think South Carolina can take advantage of that. Currently sitting in the upper half of the SEC in turnover margin. I believe South Carolina sits at +4 in the turnover margin right now, if I remember correctly when I looked earlier today. So I see those opportunities for South Carolina to be successful in the football game. I think South Carolina is actually going to win this football game. I think they're going to get back to their winning ways. I see South Carolina winning this football game 28-20. I don't see South Carolina kicking many field goals here on out unless they're going to be the chip shot type field goals that they can really be used to give Parker White some confidence and kind of build his momentum for later on in the season. So that's kind of the way I see it playing out. I think Jake Bentley is going to be able to take advantage of some opportunities to stay on his feet in the pocket, and South Carolina is going to come away with a win. This Saturday, Williams-Brice Stadium, 4 o'clock on the SEC Network. Gamecocks currently a 1.5-point underdog in this football game to Arkansas, but I think they're going to pull it out. That's the show, folks. Thanks for making us a part of your week. We'll be back next week with another Carolina CrowLine. Stay tuned.